Welcome to the Insurance Producers Podcast, where we bring you the top personalized producers, insurance agents, and industry partners, giving you at least 3 takeaways to 10x your production and build your multi-million-dollar revenue books. So sit back, relax, and become inspired by the success stories and strategies of the world's top insurance minds. Let's roll. All right, welcome back, everybody. My name is Cyrus Jaffery. As you all know, welcome to the Insurance Producers Podcast. Man, I'm excited today. I have got, I'm going to call him a friend from today on, but I just my first time meeting Ryan. I've met him in the past at a speaking event that he was at that I listened to him 3-4 years ago. Man, he's done a lot for our industry. I want to welcome Ryan Hanley. What's happening, buddy?
Well, Cyrus, definitely a friend, and I love what you're doing, man. I'm excited for you, and just getting to know what you have going on, dude. You're the freaking future, dude. I love it. I'm so excited that that someone like you is out there pushing the envelope, building. It jacks me up. So I'm happy to be here.
I appreciate you, man. I appreciate you. I paid him a lot of money for that, everybody. So Ryan, man, yeah, take us back just a little bit, man. How'd you get into the industry real quick? And then we'll kind of get into the meat and the potatoes. So
yeah, I'll give everyone the kind of quick 10-cent tour. I've been in the industry for 18 years. I got into the industry basically as the dowry for my ex-wife's hand in marriage. I had been, I was a failed mechanical engineer turned math major, which there's not a lot of opportunity for math majors out there. I was doing a bunch of consulting work for accounting firms, and I worked for American Express, et cetera. And I didn't particularly care for it. At least at that time. They probably would have been interesting jobs today, but at the time it was not particularly interesting to me. And my future father-in-law at the time, he kind of pulled me out of a family event and said, hey, I know you're not loving where you're at and you're kind of looking for things. Would you be open to a sales position? And I had never really sold anything before. I'd had jobs since I was 13 years old, but never really like a true hardcore sales position. And it sounded exciting. And I obviously wanted him to like me because I was going to be marrying his daughter. And I said yes. And I found out really quickly that I was really friggin' terrible at selling insurance the traditional way. So much so that 18 months into the job, he fired me. And I did what any self-respecting young man would do is I got down on my knees and I begged him to take me back. And he did. He agreed. He said he'd give me some more time, but that I had to turn things around. What I realized at that time was I did not have the skills, and there certainly was not the trainings that there are today. There were not all these communities and people out there helping people understand. I just was terrible at cold calling, and I didn't like it. What I did like and what I did pick up on was an affinity for educating people. And I realized that so blogging and things were just starting to become part of our ecosystem. It's like 2008, 2009. And what I started doing was answering the questions that I would get on sales calls. So if I was So we worked long days. We had to be at the office at 7. We prospected and wrote commercial insurance from 7 to 4. You then got 2 hours of personal time from 4 to 6. You had to be back at the office at 6, and you did personal insurance from 6 to 9 every night. And yeah, so any of the producers out there that think whatever your schedule is tough, your schedule isn't shit. Like, you're not working half as hard as you should.
Is that legal?
I don't know. But that's what we did. And there was 5 of us at the office, including my father-in-law who'd be there. And so we would set up personal lines appointments at 7 p.m. and then at 9 p.m. in people's homes. So this is back when you used to drive and literally you were selling wet signed insurance across people's tables. So I would write down the questions they would ask me during the meeting, like what is underinsured motorist coverage? How does no fault work? Et cetera. And then I would go, on the weekends or whatever during the day when I was, kind of exhausted from cold calling, I would write blog posts answering those questions. And that was kind of what I did differently. And what I started to find is people started to read those and started to call in. And that's really what turned my career around. So fast forward, after about 8 years there, I took the job. There was some family stuff that whatever, just working for your in-laws is not the most fun thing ever to do in the world. And I took a job as a chief marketing officer for a company, trustedchoice.com. I built the Agency Nation platform. I got to meet, literally tens of thousands of insurance professionals from all over the industry. I've been on the 42nd floor of every carrier in the country. Incredible knowledge. I worked for Bold Penguin as a CMO for a while. And then I had a brief stint outside the industry because I had a family member get terminally ill and I couldn't travel for work. And the only thing I could do here in the Albany, New York area, which is where I'm from, was a CEO of a fitness franchise, et cetera. And come 2020, I decided I wanted to take all this insurance knowledge that I had, this kind of vantage point on the industry and this gap that I saw, and I wanted to build an agency that I thought solved those problems, which I called it a human optimized agency. And it had these two core ideas. One, the technology should support humans' time to build deeper relationships. And two, that insurance producers, there should be no ceiling on insurance producers' careers. And the two core ideas there are that if we, on average, an insurance transaction takes about 20 minutes. So in the traditional sense, and using traditional technology, 5 of those minutes are spent on the phone with the customer and 15 of those minutes are spent transacting the business. I wanted to take that ratio and flip it on its head. I wanted to use automation tools. And this is why you and I connected so quickly, just with your doing with Quotemation, et cetera, is that I wanted to take and make it so that we could spend 15 minutes on the phone with the customer, getting to know them, cross-selling, building a deeper relationship, more connect, more trust, more respect, and then only need 5 minutes to automate or 5 minutes to transact. Okay. And then couple that with this idea of a no ceiling insurance career, which I explained to you off air, but I'll briefly explain for the people at home and then I'll shut up. I created a 4-stage career for insurance professionals where you could come in, say 3 years to no license, right? So in that range, you'd come in and we had a series, we had basically roles and responsibilities for that position to kind of teach them the business, teach them the coverage. They would shadow, mentor, do a lot of lead sourcing, lead distribution, et cetera. You would then kind of evolve into what we call the select producer, or I now call a closer, which is an inbound insurance rep. Once you proved yourself there, we would then launch you out as a true producer, in which you had a niche, you're going after a certain market, you were becoming a subject matter expert, you were going to trade shows, et cetera. And then when your book got big enough and you felt comfortable, you could buy that book out and essentially we would aggregate that business back through our agency. And in that way, an insurance producer could go from no license to owning their own agency in one flow. And that was the model. For a whole bunch of reasons, I ended up selling in 2022 that model to SIA, and I just recently exited that business in October of this year.
Very cool. Man, that's a long career already, man, and you've only been in it 18 years. I feel like you've done it all, dude. From an agency side to a producer, personal, commercial, tech side, owning businesses, like CEO, I mean, you're pretty much the best person to have on a podcast because you can
I don't know about that. I don't know about that. I definitely, it's been there are pros and cons to that journey. I feel like, the work that I'm doing now through my company, Finding Peak, is basically fractional CRO work. So companies bring me in and I basically give them those 18 years of experience, expertise, skills, et cetera, processes, in exchange for them having to hire a full-time person in that position. I love that work because it allows me to problem solve, et cetera. It has been an incredible journey for that work because there are a few situations I could walk into that I haven't probably dealt with or et cetera. The disadvantage to that journey is that I do not have a through line in my career, right? So 18 years, I've had to start and restop 5 different times and build from scratch. Now, what I've learned is that each time I'm able to get to escape velocity into a really, comfortable from the sense that, I'm paying my bills and things are good, to very successful, very fast. So I know how to do it. I've done it multiple times. That's great. But I will say, and I think just addressing for our insurance producer friends who are listening and to give them some guidance that I think actually equates to them, there is a new trend that is starting in our industry where insurance producers hop around from agency to agency quite quickly. Mm-hmm. And if you live in California and you can bring your book with you, maybe that's not a big deal. I do think that, and in hindsight, if I could change anything, although I'm very happy with where I am, I don't want to make that seem like I'm regretful. I would work harder to work through things and build a deeper through line in my career so that I was accumulating more benefit over that time versus having to go back to zero and build up again and go back to zero and start up again. And I think this idea, I've just seen a lot of producers who are like, I'm not happy with my commission split, so I'm going to move. Or I'm not, this agency owner doesn't do X, so I'm going to move. And it's like, I get some of that. There are situations that are just untenable, and it does make sense for you to move on to a new space. However, I think there is a lot of benefit, and we talked a little bit about this in a different context with yourself. There is a huge benefit in this particular industry to time in market. And the longer you can be in market, the longer you can have consistency of brand, the longer you can build that book of business, the more benefit, the more leverage, if we're thinking purely selfishly, the more leverage you can build into your career to possibly make the changes that you want in the space you already are. So, I think while there are always going to be situations where it is more advantageous for you to move, if you are a career hopper, I'm not going to say that means anything about you as a person, but I do think it forces you to start and restop a lot. And you don't necessarily understand the negative impact of going back to zero that often until you hit a certain age. And then you're like, shit, I'm kind of sick of starting at zero again. So I hope that helps people.
Man, absolutely, man. I'm curious on your past when you were a producer. What did that like? So what did that day-to-day kind of look like? I know you mentioned, okay, from 7 to 4, I'm doing more prospecting on the commercial side, and then from 6 to 9 on the personal side. So what did that prospecting look like that you were doing? Because obviously you had some success and that agency had success. What were some things you were doing back then to prospect?
Yeah. So again, just to give people the reference, this is 2006 to 2014. So I would give people slightly different things to do today, but back then the days were pretty standard. I would show up at 7. I would do paperwork, quotes, make sure that anything that I had put in to be quoted the day before or whatever, I'd get status updates. And then around 8:30 or 9, I'd get in my car and I'd start driving. And I knew every strip mall, every business. I knew, I would hit networking events and I would be out. I would make cold calls from my car. I would stop in places, drop business cards, go to meetings. And I was just out all day. I mean, my father-in-law, who was the principal, his philosophy was, if you're in the agency, you're not working. And while, today I think that, I don't know that I necessarily agree with that. I do think the ideal that, activity begets results, right? You have to be doing the activities. If you're not doing the activities, then you can't be upset with the results. There's like I don't know if it's Jordan or Kobe or whoever. There's like there's a quote that goes around. It's attributed to a bunch of different people. But it's basically like you can't be upset about the results you don't get for the activity that you didn't do, right? Like, so if I dropped off 30 business cards to local small businesses, if I hit up a networking event and made 10 cold calls from my car during the day to bigger businesses that maybe I couldn't necessarily just walk right into, and I did that every day, activity was going to happen. Now, it took me time to figure out what I was better at from a skill perspective, what worked better for our market, et cetera. And as I figured that out, I did more of the things that worked. But I always did a shit ton of activity. There was always, I never just showed up, hit the water cooler. Hey, what's going on, Sally? What happened at the basketball game last night or whatever? Like, not that you didn't have those moments or little breaks during the day. We all need those. But like, you can't just screw off all day and then wonder why you're not hitting your numbers. There's a very clear reason. Like, I say this all the time to any sales professional who works for me, and I've said it to every sales professional who works for me and every business I've ever worked. You chose sales as a career, not me, right? I didn't grab you off the street and throw you in this business and say, I don't care who you are, you're selling today. You walked in and said, I'm going to be a sales professional. And unfortunately for sales professionals, there is one clear and defining number as to whether or not you're doing your job. And that is how many sales you bring in, right? Like, truthfully, your boss will never actually care how many cold calls you make, but they do care how many sales you bring in and what that number is. Because if you aren't profitable individually, you are useless to the business, right? This is something we don't talk about enough, right? Like, are you as a producer keeping a personal profitability report? So we had these at Rogue. Basically, it was, here's how much we pay you. Here's your commission split. Here's your benefits. Here's how much revenue you brought in. If you haven't brought in more than what we pay you, you are not a productive member of this team. And I'm sorry if that's harsh or it hurts your feelings or you don't like to see that you're underperforming, but you are the mechanism that makes this entire operation run. And if you're not profitable, the business has no chance of being profitable. So we would literally tell them point blank with this personal profitability report, like, look, man, I love you, but for the last 6 months, you've lost us money. I've been paying you to work here. How does that work? Like, if you were me, and this is what I would say to them, I maybe was a little softer in my approach, at least at the beginning with some of these people, but like, if you were me, how would you handle this situation? You have someone who you are literally giving money to show up because you're not doing anything else for us. You're not doing accounting. You're not doing marketing. You are selling things and you're not selling enough. So what I found is you'd get that conversation would generate a visceral response in one of two directions. You're an a-hole. How could you talk to me this way? I'm trying my best. You'd get that. And now I know that person is a loser and probably has a kind of scarcity mindset and wasn't going to be a long-term fit. I mean, everyone can change, but unfortunately, far too many of us have this like entitled, I just like to think of it as a scarcity mindset. We think the world is small and it's about us and whatever. And it's like, unfortunately, I was not born with a abundance of empathy. I wish that I was. My mom yells at me all the time for it. My mom called me the other day on the phone and she goes, "How come you think you don't have empathy?" And I think that I do. I'm just like, I think people are accountable for their actions. I don't know. And in certain positions, like there are certain positions in an organization where, there are all these intangible things that they bring to the organization that are equally valuable. In sales, there are no intangibles. You have to be profitable as an individual so that the organization can make profit. So the flip side of that coin is there were other people who'd look at it and be like, dude, I have never thought of it. Like, I quite literally never thought of it this way before. I didn't understand where I actually was. I didn't realize how much you paid me in commission and benefits, etc. Like, let's get to work. Like, I'm ready. Like, what do you need me to do? Like, I'm sorry. Like, let's go. And then you put all the gasoline behind that guy or gal, right? Because that person's going to go out, they're going to change their behavior and they're going to get after it. And then a lot of times those people would turn around and be some of our best salespeople because they just didn't actually understand the economics of their position in the company. And I found that that's a really good way for producers to track their own contribution to an organization. So now let's take it from the standpoint of I'm the actual producer. So let's say you're doing a personal profitability report and you're being honest about it and you feel like you're being compensated unfairly. Well, if you have a personal profitability report that you've put together and you've tracked your profitability to the organization over a period of time, now you can go to your agency principal or boss or whoever and say, hey, look, man, I love working here, but geez, I've made you 4X what I've actually taken out, and like, I'm not asking for a lot, but like, hey, can I get a 5-point bump on my new business? Right. It only has this much impact in my overall profitability to the organization. It helps me out a ton. I got a new kid coming, or my wife and I are buying a house, or my husband and I, whatever, I want to pay off my college bills, and I'm good for it because you can see how much I produced. That's a conversation you're going to win at. Right. And, or maybe you want an assistant, right? Maybe you want to buy an assistant. You want the organization to buy you an assistant. Well, if you're only making a tiny little margin in profitability and you go ask for an assistant, they're going to be like, take a hike. But if you can come in and say, look, hey, I'm here by myself, but if I had an assistant or a VA, et cetera, who could, I think I could double this amount of margin for you with this much, even baking in this much cost, if you were to get me an assistant, because I could 3x my results, right? Or a new piece of technology, right? A lot of producers will say, like, I could be great, but my agency doesn't have a CRM or doesn't have a cool quoting tool or whatever. Like, do a personal profitability report. Now you know exactly where you stand, and you can go and have a real conversation with your ownership group about what you need to be successful, versus just going in and being like, throwing your hands up in the air and be like, I can't hit my numbers because you guys don't have a CRM. And I think those are the kind of like real conversations that I've tried to teach sales professionals to have, because you may not always like the results, but it allows you to level set in reality, change activity and habits appropriately, and then have real conversations with leadership and management as necessary to get where you want to be.
Man, that was the best, probably 10 minutes. A producer, every producer, honestly, that is in insurance needs to hear that. Because it's the Whiffam effect. Like, what's in it for me? Like, if you have a profitability, obviously, like, you can go to your people and you can make more money. Like, we have a lady in our office. She's been in the industry for 12 years. She was with Geico for 9. She's been with me for 3.5. And she literally this year, in personal lines only, because we're we're 95.5 personal lines. She literally did 1.8 million in personal lines new business by herself. And everybody else, my brother was about 1.2. So he was there. He was good. Everybody else, the other 12 to 15 people, were between like 400 to 700. And I asked him, I said, guys, why do you think Tara is writing 1.8 million in new business versus everybody else is under $1 million or 500,000 or whatever that is? And everybody knows what it is. She doesn't freaking waste time. She goes, Tara goes to her room. She knows exactly how many calls she needs to make. She knows exactly how many quotes she needs to do, because our CRM, our management system, literally tells her, hey, for every call that you make, this is how much money you make, because that calls equals what? A conversation. Conversation equals a quote. A quote equals premium. A premium is how you get paid as a salesperson. So the recipe is pretty easy, right? Like, everybody knows what equates what. It's just they don't want to do the work to be able to do what to obviously bring in the money. So the recipe is there. You've already said it. But I would say, man, the old school way of, honestly, dude, like, getting on the road and just going in is the new sexy thing almost, because nobody does it.
Yeah, it's just about separating yourself, right? So I have always separated myself through my ability to get on video. That's been how I've found I can talk in a casual way in which I take complex, ridiculous terminology, boil it down to language that people understand is relatable, and it's worked for me. I mean, I built the most trafficked insurance YouTube channel in the history at the time in the Murray Group, and then I just had, I think, the third most trafficked YouTube channel in history ever in Rogue Risk, and I did it in half the time. So, like, that's my superpower. But if you ask me to get on the phones and cold call, could I make a couple of them? I think I am, and this is not going to sound humble, but I just believe I'm the best of the best at creating insurance content. I just feel like I'm right at the top. I'm in that conversation, top 5 for sure. Whatever. I'm sure there are people that are better, but like, that's where I am. You put me in cold calling, I'm mediocre at best. So I think that what we have to find is, what is the thing that produces results that you are also willing to do that you are good at, right? So there's a Venn diagram there. So it can't be, I'm going to send out mailers, because those might not produce results, right? You might be the best, like old school D2C marketer that exists, but if it doesn't return results, doesn't matter, right?
Yeah.
You might be something that you're good at, but you hate doing. It might be something that you love doing, but you're terrible at it, right? Like, so there's all these things, and it's so you create that Venn diagram of what produces money, what do I love doing, what am I good at, and whatever's in the middle. That press that friggin' button all day long. Now there is another option. Don't worry about what you enjoy doing, right? You can take out what you enjoy doing and just over-index on what works and just figure out how to get good at it. I'd say that's the other option, that if there is nothing that you find, because there is a possibility with that first Venn diagram, that there is nothing that makes money, you enjoy doing, and you're good at in insurance prospecting. It's very possible. There are people that happens, right? You might not like cold calling, you might not like cold emailing, you might not like working for a referral partner. So then you have to be an adult, and you need to just do whatever works over and over and over again, whether you like it or not. Screw your emotions, screw your feelings, screw whatever stupid excuse you're going to try to make as to why you can't do that thing or that thing doesn't work for you, and just friggin' do it and get good at it. Because at the end of the day, there is no better career for making money in a sustainable and scalable way than insurance production. There just isn't, right? There's no better way to make money that is both sustainable and scalable than insurance production. So you either have to find that thing that you love doing, which was creating video content for me, loved it, produced results, I love doing it, and I was good at it. Thank you, I'm lucky. If that wasn't the case, then I would have had to find something that just friggin' works and been an adult and just done it. And that's the part that's the hard conversation, and the thing that producers don't want to hear is, I hated driving around and walking to businesses and dropping off business cards. But you know what? If I dropped off 10 business cards, 2 of those people would call me back. That's just the way it was. Yeah. Now I don't know that those numbers would be the numbers that work today, but I knew back then that if I drove around and dropped off business cards, for every 10 business cards that I walked in and dropped off with the owner, 2 of those people would call me back. So that's what I did, because I hated doing it. I literally hated doing it. But it worked. And that's what you have to be. You got to be a friggin' adult.
Yeah. So for a producer, one of the first things from what I'm hearing you would recommend is, first of all, you gotta, dude, if you hate cold calling, you could probably do it for 2 or 3 years, maybe, but you're going to burn yourself out. There's no reason to do something that you're not. So the first thing for a producer, what I would assume you would say is, figure out what you really like. Like, it's because you want to be in this industry for a very long time, right? Like, you don't want to go into businesses for 9 years. You don't like freaking going to businesses. So find what you like, first of all, right? And then from there, then really 10x that.
Yes.
And for everybody, it could be different.
Or find a way that makes it fun. So I hate cold calling. However, what I found is, I found a way of cold emailing that produces really good results, and I do it in a way that fits me. So I created a one-pager about our agency and or the product or an industry that I was trying to sell, and then I used Loom videos to create little 1 minute to 2 minute introduction videos about that prospect, specifically geared to that prospect, not a blast out standardized thing. I would literally go to the website, talk through the website. Hey, I see you're doing this. Have you thought about this from your workers' comp perspective? Whatever. I'm not going to do justice to what I would say in this call, but the idea is, then I'd send that email out, and I found I'd get 4 responses for every 10 I'd send out. Now that doesn't mean 4 sales, because there's all different situations. It's cold calling, right? But for me, dude, I could do that all day. Break down someone's business, talk on video, send it out to them, attach a thing. I could send 50 of those out a day, and I'd get to the end of the day and I wouldn't even be tired. I'd be excited. I'd be like, God, I can't wait to see how many people watch those videos and the responses that would come back. So that's how I made cold email or cold outreach work for me. That some other people might hate that. So cold outreach works. It works really, really well. There are multiple different ways to do it. So find a way that works for you, that as you said, you can show up and do every day and aren't going to get burnt out at, and that produces results. And it doesn't have to be just, literally when I started, dude, and you laughed at our schedule, my stepdad, the first day I show up at 7:15, I said, okay, what do we do? He goes, we prospect personal lines after 7 p.m. That's what we do. Okay, great. How do we do that? He goes, start calling your friends and family list. So that's what I did. When I got to the end of that list, which happened within like a week, I was like, what do I do now? He literally throws the phone book down, opens up the page, points at a name, and he goes, start here. And we literally just called out of the phone book. And it was horrible. But it's part of the reason why I almost got fired. But like to him, that worked, right? For him, he didn't care. He just, it did not bother him. Whatever it was, whatever the hiccup that I had, he did not have. He could just pick up the phone. Hi, Tracy, this is Jim Murray, just following up on the insurance quote I sent you. What insurance quote? Oh, Tracy, you didn't get the insurance quote I sent you? Well, I'm Jim Murray from the Murray Group Insurance Services and blah, blah, blah. And he would have this whole thing. And by the end, he'd have this woman cackling and laughing. And he's a great guy and he's just super good at this thing. And like, he had zero fear or whatever that thing is that holds you back. That didn't work for me. So, what I would do is I'd look at what Tara's doing. Like if I'm in your age, I'd look at what Tara's doing and say, okay, can I do what Tara's doing? Yes or no? Yes. Okay, great. I'm just going to do what she does. Can I do what Tara's doing? No. Okay. What are the parts of what Tara's doing that I can do? And how do I make what Tara's doing my own so that I can have similar results, but maybe just not do it the exact same way, the way that it fits me. And that's how I would approach. Like if I had someone who's killing it and I'm at 500,000 and she's at 1.8, there's got to be something I can learn from her. And it might not be exactly what she's doing, but there has to be a way to make it my own so that I can start to improve my own results.
Yeah. And that's where like a person like that, like it's either going to drive you in or drive you out.
Yeah.
Because you're like, man, like this is probably not for me, man. I'm trying this, blah, blah, blah. So, man, this has been so good, Ryan, man. I appreciate you. You definitely need to do what you just told me. I don't know if you've got that out to the public yet with the producers, but man, you would be such a help for so many producers out there, man, with some of the ideas that you have and the things that you've learned in the last 18 years, man. Get that fast, man. We need you.
Producers, I appreciate you. If you don't mind the plug,
absolutely.
Right now, if there's anyone out there and you're listening to this and you're an agency owner or whatever, I am doing fractional CRO services for people. So I'm helping people, take this knowledge and run sales teams, run marketing teams, or run both, and helping them drive revenue, solve the revenue problems, and implement these strategies into their agency. If you're a producer, go to ryanhanley.com. I have an email list. Put your name and email in. April 1st, we're coming out with a program to teach this stuff. I want it to be done right. I want it to be done in a way that I'm proud of. And that takes a little bit of time. Lots of good content comes out for free during that channel, but we're going to have program stuff that comes out to teach this stuff. And just go to ryanhanley.com. And then if anyone ever has any questions about stuff or, whatever, little ditties, just either hit me up on social or ryan@findingpeak.com. Happy to help however I can. It's, dude, this industry has given me, I came from a shitty little town of 900 people. They called my house a crack house. Like, we didn't actually sell crack out of there, but it looked like a crack house. And we were just a lower class getting by family, barely getting by family. And I've been given a life and a lifestyle and been able to provide my kids with a life and a lifestyle that I could have never dreamed of. And it is 100% unequivocally because of what's possible inside this industry. So I feel a great responsibility to give back and share and educate. And it's why I love doing these shows. It's why I love learning about dudes like you and everything you have going on. And for sure, we're going to do a home and home. We'll figure out a time to get you onto my podcast and tell your story too. So I just appreciate the hell out of you, man. This has been great.
Absolutely, man. Ryan, man, I appreciate you, brother. Appreciate you being on. This, promise you, this won't be the last time you'll be on this podcast. And then once your producer thing is up and running, man, we're going to get all of our producers in there, because I know that you'll be able to get us a lot of value. So appreciate you being on.
Awesome.
And thank everybody for watching.
Thanks, buddy.
Ryan, we'll have you hang on for 1 second.
Yep.
1 second. So it downloads to make, dude. So I'm originally from Afghanistan. I was 2 years old when our house got bombed when I was in it. So we basically moved to Pakistan. And long story, I'm writing a book that's just about to come out in the next week about the whole process. Went to Pakistan, lived in refugee camps and stuff in Pakistan for 12 years and then as a refugee, and then moved here in 2002. No English whatsoever. So what this industry has done for me and my family and my kids, man, has been unbelievable.
Dude, that's crazy. Dude, I'm going to send you an email with a Calendly link. Let's do a home and home, and you come on my show and let's tell your story too. I would love to connect and deep dive and stuff. I think you said people don't know who you are. I think we should change that. I think we definitely should change that. So I appreciate this opportunity. I do have to jump, but
go.
Yeah,
so
this is great, bud. And look for that email. All right.
All right, sounds good, brother. Talk to you soon.
Thanks, buddy. Peace.